Hello, and welcome back to Isaac's Reviews. Today we are covering another different character. I've talked before about why I enjoy some of these Pulp characters, and we've covered the Phantom and Solomon Kane. Today we have a new character to cover. Let me introduce you to the Avenger. No, not the Avengers, but the Avenger. This character was created in 1939, but the book that I'm holding was printed in 1972. Now, I've found a handful of these books over the years at a local bookstore. I'm a fan. I've read them, I enjoy them, and if you give me a moment, I think you will too. This book starts with Richard Benson being described as a very lucky man. So this was kind of a new introduction to the Avenger written in the 70s. So if you want a good jumping on place, that's this book right here. Back to the story. Richard Benson is a very lucky man. We'll find out later that he's pretty rich as well. So he's arguing with a ticket agent. He's trying to get on a plane with his wife and his daughter. They're going to Montreal. His wife's mother is actually in the hospital and is dying. So they're going to the hospital to say goodbye, essentially. Maybe to help her set her affairs in order. He's told that there are no planes leaving right now, but there will be some later. And that's not good enough. He's in a hurry. So he spies an airline being boarded, and he rushes to board it, daughter and wife in tow. Benson is described as a 5'8", about 160. But with a strong air that commands respect. He manages to push his way on board. There are 7 other people on the plane. The Bensons are finally able to relax, and Richard gets up to go to the bathroom. Found out here that he was previously something of an adventurer. He traveled, he did a lot of adventuring, and he's amassed a small fortune. So Richard is a bit of a clean freak, goes to the bathroom, washes hands, washes face. Comes back from washing his hands, and he finds his wife, Alicia, and his daughter, Alice, gone. He finds them gone. So, at first, he's fine. He figures they've gone to the other bathroom, and they'll be back in a minute. Men and ladies' bathrooms, right? After they don't come back, he goes and he checks, and there's no one in the bathroom. And then he frantically starts demanding to know where his wife and daughter are. He even feels the seat cushion, and to his surprise, it's cold, as if no one sat there. The stewardess is trying to make him calm down, but she makes the fatal error of telling him, "Sir, you boarded the plane alone. Your wife and daughter are not on board." Everyone on the plane says, "Sir, you boarded the plane alone." Finally, he's made such a ruckus, he stormed the pilot's cabin, and he gets knocked out with a fire extinguisher to the head. Then he gets hauled off to the mental hospital, and wakes up to talk to the nurses. She tells him it's 4:30 p.m. He's shocked. He's been out for hours, 18 or 20 of them. She tells him he's been feverish and out of it for about 3 weeks. And then he's in for another shock. She hands him a mirror, and Benson's face, which once was tanned and rugged with dark black hair, is now, I don't know if you can see that very well, pale white with snow white hair. And he finds that the facial muscles, he can't really make any facial expressions. His facial muscles appear to be paralyzed. But this comes with an added advantage. It seems he can shape and mold it with his fingers like silly putty. Thus we are introduced to his superpower, the ability to reshape and mold his face, seemingly at will. So, he's eager to get out of here. They've told him his wife and daughter don't exist. He never had them. He's eager to get out of the mental institution. He pretends to be okay. He gets released later on. He then starts to retrace his steps, determined to find out what happened to his wife and daughter. He interrogates a cab driver, a ticket agent, and anyone he can think of, and they swear that it was just him that got on the plane. He leaves the agent and goes to the nearest hangar, and that ticket agent is confronted by three men. They seem to be upset that he squealed. Finally, Benson catches a break, and one of the hangar attendants says he remembers Benson and will speak with him, just not here. Benson arranges a rendezvous and leaves, shaking with relief. His cab is run off the road, and Benson fights three hoods and wins. He carts them off to the police station, but they're sprung later. Back at the hotel, Benson meets Fergus McMurdy, the airport hangar guy. McMurdy says Benson isn't crazy, that his wife and daughter did get on the plane. But it turns out Mac's got a stake in this. He believes Benson might be able to find his wife and daughter again. Mac feels that it's his duty to help him do this because Mac's family is dead. See, Mac was an entrepreneur. He had multiple stores, and he ran a comfortable little business until some hoods came to Mac and said, "You need to pay us protection money." He refused, and they bombed his stores, set them on fire. Unfortunately, his wife and daughter were in. Or it may have been his son. Let's see. No, wife and daughter. Wife and daughter were in one of his stores. So he feels a need to go after criminals whenever he can. And he sees in Benson a kindred spirit. So he tells Benson that the crowd on the plane has been the same for the last several weeks. So Benson sends Mac to check out the plane. Mac sneaks in disguised, and I'm getting ahead of myself. Benson checks out the plane first. Benson checks out the plane and discovers the trap door in the plane. This just overwhelms him. Now he begins to suspect that his wife and daughter are not only kidnapped, but might also be dead. So he's overwhelmed. He's on his knees examining this trap door, and he's attacked from behind, knocked out cold, and whisked off to a barn somewhere. He comes to, and he immediately starts fighting the guys that have kidnapped him. McMurdy ends up finding him. Mac McMurdy ends up finding him and assists him in the fight. They finally figure out a clue. The clue is someone by the name of Old Ironsides. Benson and McMurdy regroup. This is when Benson introduces his famous weapons, Mike and Ike, a customized silenced .22 pistol and a knife, respectively. Old Ironside is named for his graying temples. His name is actually Lawrence Hickok. And he's a wealthy businessman, and he's been missing. Benson and Mac go to see Hickok, and his wife informs them that he is indeed missing. Benson gets in a fight with a driver there named Smitty, who's described as a giant of a man. Smitty attacks him, thinking that Benson's trying to pin Hickok's disappearance on Smitty. But Benson winds up winning the fight, recruiting Smitty, and they proceed to do some more investigating. A lot of this book is Benson and his crew at this point doing various investigations. Smitty pretends to be kind of dopey and finds his way onto the plane. Acts like he can't really understand because they're saying, "Sir, you shouldn't be on the plane." He's like, "Yeah, I got a ticket, yes." So he pretends to be kind of dopey and not really understand. He gets on the plane. But he's not supposed to be on the plane. And so he gets chloroformed and dumped off the plane. At this point, the book pauses to give you a cigarette ad. Because again, old book. This was in the 70s, so here's your cigarette ad, which I find humorous. We get back to the action. Benson goes out to Carney and Buell brokerage firm to investigate a woman named Ms. Martineau and her money. She has sold a lot of stocks in a company called Buffalo Tap and Die. Turns out several people have gone missing, all of them associated with Buffalo Tap and Die. Benson and McMurdy fight some thugs, find a note that says that Hickok needs insulin fast. This comes back later and factors in pretty heavily. We flash back to Smitty. He's been thrown out of the plane, remember? He's thrown out of the plane, but that bulge on his back, he's disguised. He's actually wearing a parachute. So he parachutes, he lands safely in some water, and he climbs aboard a passing boat. He gets awfully lucky here. That same boat docks where Benson is. So he tries to sneak up on a sailor, Benson does, but he's heard and captured. He then escapes, overpowers his attackers, and they are now on the island fighting some bad guys. They're sneaking and shooting and punching, various action beats. Benson and his crew save everybody on the island. Turns out these captives all had stock in Buffalo Tap and Die, and they were kidnapped for that stock. Unfortunately, Benson runs all over the hideout searching. His wife and his daughter are not anywhere near the captives. So he proceeds to take that letter and that postcard that was asking for insulin, and he plants it in a room where he's arranged for the three major stockholders to meet. These three major stockholders are the ones that hatched this plan. See, the plan was to kidnap the other stockholders and force them to either sell their stock, or if they wouldn't sell, kill them and take their stock so that they could now own outright Buffalo Tap and Die. Benson arranges for them all to be in the same room. The letter, the postcard. The letter suggests that each of them are trying to double-cross each other. So they're arguing. They think each one's framed the other for crimes. Maybe there's a double-cross involved, and they hear a noise at the door. They're so jumpy, they're so keyed up, that they pull out their guns and shoot each other. And then in walks Benson. He calls the police. Turns out those three who had bought the Tap and Die and raided the cash reserve. They then kidnapped and threatened the other stockholders to sign over their shares to replenish that cash reserve that they'd raided. Hickok, remember Hickok? He had pretended to be kidnapped, which is why when he sent the note saying, "I need insulin," anyone cared. If he was one of the other kidnappees, they were going to kill them anyway. They wouldn't have cared. But Hickok was pretending to be kidnapped, and so he needed that insulin to survive. Benson figured that out because he's the hero of the story. Unfortunately, his family had just been caught up in it. Wrong place, wrong time. And these thugs killed his family. But in so doing, they created their worst enemy. Crime had a new combatant against it, and he was called the Avenger. I love this story. It's fantastic. It's a very good introduction to the character, and I think it was written with that in mind as a jumping on point. If you're going to look at getting into this character, start here. Start with Justice Inc. #1, The Avenger. It's very good. Like I said, I've read some more of this character. I thoroughly enjoy it. He's a very interesting character, very compelling, man of action, described as a man of iron will. And he exemplifies quite a few positive traits that maybe you or your family or loved ones starved for these positive traits in modern media. This might be a good place to look for some of that stuff. It's also just a really exciting adventure story. So, there's the recommendation for today, The Avenger. Enjoy.